Hey, everybody, welcome back to the High Performance Zone. Today, I have one of my heroes in life, Tom Kirk. Now, Tom was an Air Force colonel back in Vietnam, leading the largest strike into North Vietnam, was shot down and spent 5 years in Hanoi Hilton. The reason, though, I hope you listen to this full podcast is it's not about that. We start very quickly and you'll get a deep insight into what that experience is like, but it's what Tom lives, a life of passion, a life of joy, a life of giving back. He is an entrepreneur. After the Air Force, you'll see he started a financial planning business. He then started a sailboat charter business, lived on a sailboat. He then lived in Italy. He then started a pizza chain. And now he is in Phoenix. Oh, and let's not forget about skiing in Vail, being an instructor there. This is a person who lives life in all its fullness, but has gone through extreme challenges. And I know I've learned so much today about a perspective on life. So here we go. We're diving into one of my heroes, really a hero for the whole United States, the whole world. And with that, Tom, glad to be here. Hey, everybody. I have Tom Kirk, Colonel Kirk, with me. He is truly one of the inspirations in my life, and I wanted to bring that to you all. Tom, first off, welcome to the High Performance Zone. Good to see you again, buddy.
Good to see you, John. It's good to be with you.
Wow, you know, you and I have spent some really quality time together in a thing we call the garage with Dick and Donna Strong. This is a unique event. Most people have no idea, in Vail, Colorado. And that's where the first time we got to meet. And I know I connected to your heart, not just your head. And also not just as a military leader, of which you were, and we'll talk a little bit about your career in the Air Force, but more importantly, what you've done since then and the positive mindset you have and the changes that you're making in this world today are so powerful and so great. So thank you for taking the time. Hey, Tom, I want to get right into this because I know my listeners probably have little experience in what you've experienced, and that is you're leading the largest strike ever into North Vietnam. And this is when you are an Air Force officer flying an F-105. What a cool airplane. I wish I had a chance to fly that. You and I will talk a little bit about that. Tell me a little bit about what was going on at that time frame in the world, and tell me what happened that day. Glad to be here.
Okay, well, on this particular day, it was 28th of October, of 1967, we were bombing a big bridge in downtown Hanoi, and for 7th Air Force, which are headquarters, targeted a challenge or selected both 105 wings to combine and join that day to make a strike. So the normal mission for the 105, the normal flight, was 16 airplanes, a group of 16 airplanes, 4 flights of 4. So we joined with them to bomb. We had 4 of them were flak suppressions, and everybody else had 3,000-pound bombs. And we were going at, we want to knock that bridge down. Time of target, over target was 7:30 in the morning. And what we did, we coordinated the day before that everything would be there. And we ended up with 32 bombers and 8 Wild Weasel, you know, F-105 anti-surface.
What are Wild Weasels for the audience so they know?
Yeah, the Wild Weasel was a 2-seated F-105, which had what we call raw gear, a specialized gear inside the airplane, built in the airplane. And their mission, they would always lead, go out before the force, maybe 15 or 20 miles out in front of the force going toward the target. And they would search for any missile sites that would be along our line of flight or that could attack us. And they would go in and try to put them out of business. They carried strike missiles. Yep. Strike missile, he launched it and it homes in on the radar. So they were greatest people in the world to have with you.
That was like, I remember my early career, I learned how to do the strike missile. Then we went to the HARM, which was a little bit more missile. But it was interesting that you're dueling with the missile batteries at that point, right?
Yeah. Well, we had on the way up, we came up through and joined the 2 forces over Laos. Okay. And then we had 12, I believe, F4 flying top cover.
Wow.
And we went in, our flight was, we found out that in the early days, they used to go in low level, pitch up to roll in. I mean, very fast. So we found out that if we cruised in around 15,000 feet, we could maintain 550 knots indicated. And then we were up above the 37, which was a primary anti-aircraft gun in that war for us.
Yeah.
Primarily during the attack phase. Anyway, so that particular morning, TOT 730, we go up. It's perfectly clear day. I could see everything. I was leading the force, and I think maybe it's worthwhile to explain that the general squadron formation was very spread out. None of us liked it, but it was the only thing we could do to be sure we had good protection against the missiles. Many people don't know that's the first time in air warfare we ever had surface-to-air missiles that on a large scale. And the flights, each flight of 4 would be in a semi box, but spread out maybe 500 feet between each airplane, and then 500 to 1,000 feet vertical. So if you can picture a box of 4, and then up to the right about 1,000 feet, another box of 4, but even they are spread out, then a low box and a high box. And we would all cruise, and naturally, like anything else, everybody's looking around, but they're flying off the leader. Right. And, that particular day, as I mentioned, it perfectly clear, and I could see Hanoi 50 miles out, loud and clear. A pretty city from the air. They were sort of almost orange-colored, mud-colored buildings with orange tile roofs. They were very obvious. It was a very pretty town that day. So we go in, and until you got within 30 miles of the target, there was very little flak. And if it was 85s normally. At 15,000 feet, it had to be big guns to get to it. But flak was puffing around us all the way in. Once we crossed the Red River, the Black River into North Vietnam. Anyway, we all set to go up to run. And once we got within the target area, within 10 miles, I mean, everybody in the world was shooting at us. And there were 7 missiles that I believe it's my citation from my medal that day, said there were 7 missiles fired at my flight. I think there was more than that, but that's okay. Anyway, we go up and we maintain 550 knots.
And Tom, you got the Silver Star that day, and one of 4 Silver Stars. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. I got the Air Force Cross that day.
Oh, you got the Air Force Cross.
Yeah.
Holy cow. So that everybody knows that is the second highest award you can get other than the Medal of Honor. And unbelievable. Yeah. We'll dive into more of that. But I am so honored to just be in your presence, not only because you won that award, but because of your attitude that you maintain. So let's keep going on the story though. You've got me riveted. I can picture this. You're up at 15,000 feet. You got a high box, a low box. You got your wild weasels in front of you. You got your fighter coverage above you. You're coming into Hanoi. I mean, I bet you the goosebumps were going crazy on you right now as you're seeing this.
This was my 67th mission. And by that time I'd led most everything I did. We were very short of flight leads at the time. And so every mission I went to Hanoi, except the first 2, I was leading. And
what is that? Now let's make sure that everybody knows what that means. You're the flight lead, okay? Why did they select you for the flight lead of this largest joint strike in the war at that time?
I have no idea how they picked me, but what happened, it was that particular day, we rotate the flight, the force, they call it, the 16 airplanes from each base, we would call the force. Plus, and the weasels were assigned on our wing, the weasels were assigned to the squadrons. So I had my weasel guy, and it came down, the mission came down from 7th Air Force, and then the DO picked me to lead it. So that was fine with me.
Wow.
But anyway, we approach and we're going like hell, and the flak is starting to get us. Everybody's concentrating on that target because the old thing was one pass and haul ass. There was no going in for more than one pass. So I call the roll in, and John, this was the most exciting thing. Where there's 32 airplanes all rolling in I could look in my peripheral vision and see airplanes everywhere, and we're all going down on the same target. I wonder how the hell we didn't hit each other. Anyway, I'm on the run, and about a third of the way down, boom, in the back of the airplane. In the back of the airplane, I got hit, and I knew that it was anti-aircraft fire because it's too high to be anything else. And it wasn't a missile, I know that. But at that particular time, I'm a soldier, so I didn't even pay any attention other than keep going down. I went on down and dropped my bombs. And one of my citations said my bombs hit the target, but I don't know that anybody's so damn sure that was all those airplanes going in.
Anyway. Well, still, Tom, not to interrupt you, but to have the mind share, you're hit and you're still going to get the mission done. You're going to deliver the ordnance. That's amazing.
Well, I guess I'm not sure there was any real plan of that, except that my goal was to get those damn bombs on a target, and I was going to do it. So airplane was flying good. The fire warning light was on. The airplane was flying good. I went down, dropped my bombs. Then I put, the pull off is all you can get, or you keep dropping down another 2,000 feet after you get rid of the bombs. And now my goal was to get that son of a gun going as fast as I could go and go due south to try to get out into the jungle 50 miles so the helicopters could come in and pick me up, because I knew I wasn't going to make it once I was on fire. And then only one guy stayed with me. The rest of the flight formed up and went back home. And my wingman, he called me. As soon as we leveled off, he says, Lee, drop your tanks, you're on fire. I says, yeah, I know I'm on fire. So I dropped the tanks, which told me I knew I wasn't going to make it home, even if the airplane made it. So, but anyway, John, I'm not even Catholic, but I was genuflexing all the way, baby.
Oh man, I bet you were.
I was asking for help, and we're going, and I'm going like hell. I had 600 knots indicated.
Wow.
And I would have gotten 800, I would have. But anyway, I'm climbing, but I'm scared to climb because of the missiles. I was a solo then by myself, as far as my airplane was concerned. And I get up, and I guess I'm 20,000 feet, but I don't have any instruments. The tape instruments in the F-105, they were all gone. I didn't have anything except the engine flight. I lost my radio, and I'm maybe 25 miles away, which is just a couple of minutes. And I noticed as I moved the stick, I could move it 8 inches, and nothing was happening. I knew the hydraulics were burning through, and it had to be any moment it was going to go, and it did. And our airplane had a characteristic of the slab or the tail went down when it locked up hydraulics. So the airplane tucked. When the tail went down, the airplane tucked. And that's when I knew I had to get. But one thing that I remember is, as if it was this morning, is all the times they had practiced the ejection seat trainer, which you must remember for years. I remember perfectly, sitting up straight, elbows in, knees together, chin down. When I blew that canopy off, and the seat went, and that's the last thing I remember until I was on the ground. If it hadn't been automatic, I wouldn't be here. And anyway, and I got on the ground. And John, I've been through water survival, jungle survival, desert survival, Arctic survival. And I got on the ground, and I didn't have 30 seconds, man. There were a bunch of people captured. I was captured when I came to on the ground. A bunch of Vietnamese men and women were clustered around me, and they were just beating the devil, beating me, kicking at me, throwing rocks at me, beating me with sticks. They beat me black and blue if I'd have been there 10 minutes longer. But that's why I'm so damn ugly, John. Everybody in the world beat me up. Anyway, the Vietnamese army came up, and they captured me, and they tied me up, put me in the back of a pickup truck, and took me into Hanoi prison.
Holy cow. Tom, what a story. I mean, there's so many points to bring up, and then I want to jump into what it was like in the Hanoi Hilton. But the most important part that I'm getting here is look at the passion. You still are living that flight. I could see it in your eyes. I could see it in your body. I've never had an experience like that, but I've had a little bit of experience. And to be a lead of that big of a operation, to be rolling in Hanoi, that's as far north as you guys were going at the time, right? To actually get your ordnance on target, and then to get hit, and then making your way out must have been an incredible, I can only imagine all that training that went into it. But then what happens is probably something that you're not really trained for. And I know that I had very little training in what they call SAR, the search, survival, escape, resistance training. And that scared me. I was only there for 3 days and it scared the hell out of me. I said, I hope I never have to experience this. And yet you now are thrown into probably the most intense situation of your life. Could you explain to us what it was like in the Hanoi Hilton?
Well, actually, I landed in the parachute unconscious, and I jammed both of my knees really bad when I landed, and I couldn't walk for nearly 2 months. But anyway, it took me in a prison camp, and they put me in a room. Now, you need to know that there were 7 camps up there. Some of them out in the jungle, some of them right in town, but there was a big prison camp, like a federal penitentiary. It was called the Hua Lo Prison, built by the French in 1901. And really, it covered a whole city block. Anyway, they took me and they did most of us into a little room. I'm on a stretcher and I'm blindfolded, bound, gagged, hands tied in front of me and ankles tied, and left me lying there on that stretcher all day. And that night they took me up. And by this time, I was in so much shock. Yeah, I wasn't really attuned to what had happened to me yet. The realization hadn't hit me yet because I was still in shock. And they left me lying there to the best of my knowledge. I'll never be sure, but I think it was 2 days. Then they took me in, had to carry me, took me into a room, and it was another, like an interrogation room. And there were 2 Vietnamese guys in uniform sitting behind very much like a card table. And they sat me down on the floor and put a box behind my back. And I'll never forget, the first question out of the guy's mouth was, "Kirk, you're not a prisoner of war. You're a war criminal. You'll be tried for crimes against the Vietnamese people, most probably shot. And now you'll answer all of our questions." Well, code. I'm not answering anything. So they want to know what I was flying, what the targets were, what load were we carrying, what were our tactics, what was going to be. I can't answer. And so we went on maybe, I'm going to say 20 or 30 minutes. And they was yelling at me, but not bad. Anyway, I said I wouldn't answer the questions. And the one guy, the senior guy, says, "Kirk, you're very stupid." And he says, "It's going to be very difficult for you up here." And he got up and left. I said, "Well, this is not too bad. I can handle this." And the door opened, and the biggest man I ever saw in Vietnam came in, and he was big, ugly. He was big and he was ugly, and we called him Big Ugly. And he was a torture expert. And he did what we call the rope trick. And to my knowledge, every American that was not so badly injured he couldn't do anything got the rope trick as the primary means of getting information out of you when they first got you. And if you picture a small rope about the size of my little finger, wrapped around your arm 3 or 4 times just above the elbow, run behind your back, wrapped around the other arm, pull together as tight as they could or touch it in the back, and then run down to your ankles, tie your ankles, pull them up behind you, you line it, and then run the whole thing around your neck. And it hurt. I mean, it hurt, but it's interesting. It hurt, but it was not excruciating in the beginning. You're tied up and you can take it. Your adrenaline is flowing, I believe me. And you can, so you lie there. When they left, they went out and just left me lying there all bound. And I don't never know how. I didn't have a watch. They took that and everything else. But anyway, I'm laying there and I begins to hurt real bad. And about, I suppose, 2 hours later, they come back in, totally untie you, sit you back up and ask you, "Now you're ready to answer my questions." And I said, "No." And anyway, I went through that 3 days and 3 nights. Jeez. And to the best of my knowledge. And on the 4th morning, when they came in, just about 6 o'clock in the morning, the sun was just coming up. When they came in, I was screaming. I was hilarious. I had been John, there's nothing in the world worse than unremitting pain. When the pain can't go away, it's just pain. And so I was just out of it. And they untied me and I broke. I have no idea to this day what I said to him, but I gave him something. Now that was really intellectually later on. That was what almost destroyed me. Well, after that, I couldn't get, I didn't know, that we didn't know anything. We got the targets and the mission 3 hours before takeoff. But anyway, so they put me in a cell for the first time by myself. I didn't see another person for 28 days. But while I'm in the cell, this was I guess the most critical moment of my life. I remember so vividly that the picture that I had in my head. And of course, it started out with, why me, God? What could I have done that bullet wouldn't have hit me? Could I have done something else with the airplane? Why me? Why me? Why me? That's what I think. Everybody did the same thing. And so I began to think. I said, here I am at the absolute 38-year-old young lieutenant colonel at the very height of my game, doing what I've been practicing for 17 years. Suddenly I'm shot down. I'm very badly injured. No one saw me get out of the airplane, so my family won't know whether I'm alive or dead. I'm terribly injured, and put me in a prison camp. I failed my country. I failed myself. I gave them something. I wanted to die, John. There's not a thread of doubt. I wanted to die, but they wouldn't let me. There's a book out by a guy named John Rowan, and the title of the book is "They Wouldn't Let Us Die," and he wrote a chapter on me, and I was the one that gave him that name. But it amazed me how the feeling of the depths of despair, and it went on like that for maybe 3 or 4 days. And I was just really torn. And then all of a sudden one morning, just like we're talking right now, I just kind of pounded my chest and I said, damn it, I'm here. I can't change it. There's nothing I can do about this. I've got to dig deep. I've got to find the strength to try to make this thing happen. And damn it, my phone's ringing. I'm not.
That's all right.
Anyway, they won't let me alone, John.
You're too much in demand because of the heart you have, but keep going. You're in the depths of despair that I know I've never been in. I don't think many people ever have come close to. And something happens. You're having this moment. What was going on?
That's exactly right. And when that thing, it was like an epiphany. I said, by God, with God's help, I'm going to stand this. I'm going to make it through this thing, and I'm going to go home. And I'm telling you from the bottom of my heart, for the next 5 years, I can handle that. Wow. And other than the initial torture treatment, when I was out of it, they had me. There's no question. They had all of us. To my knowledge, nobody got through without giving them something. Absolutely. But anyway, after that, they put me in a cell. And of all things, John, this is 3 Navy commanders. And
that's worse than being in prison, huh?
I haven't got time to tell you, but I was liaison out on a ship with the Admiral's staff for 21 days. Just before 7 days, I went back. I was shot down 7 days later. And of all things, I got 2 missions in the backseat of the F-4 off the carrier. And the squadron commander who flew me off the carrier ended up my cellmate.
No.
Yes. John,
what was his name? Who was that?
Chuck Gillespie.
Oh, you're kidding me.
He was head of test pilot school when we came home. But anyway, and another guy in the cell with me was an exec of one of the A4 squadrons on the same boat, and I met him. I didn't know 10 people in the whole Navy, and now I'm in the cell with 2 of them. Anyway, and you take over from here for a minute. What else?
Yeah. So Tom, this is amazing. You and I have, you've told that story and you live it. I want to dive into, look at the attitude you have, even retelling that story, the jokes, the laughter. And what I really want to dive into to help people is how you went from the depths of despair. And I can't imagine a deeper story than that. What got you through, and how do you approach life today?
Oh, that's a good one. I believe very strongly that they can beat me up, they can control anything physically, but they can't get in my head if you don't let them. And I guess I'm like you and every other fighter pilot. There's nobody better than we are. I don't need anybody to pump me up. I'm pumped up enough just getting up in the morning. And I think I've always had a very positive outlook on life and always been a very positive person. And once I made the decision that I was going to be okay, my cellmates used to say, Jesus, it doesn't seem to bother you in here. They say that to me a lot. And I couldn't understand. I had almost put a shell around me as far as outside. And I'm working on the head up here to keep, and I kept a good attitude. The toughest thing to do was after the initial torture session was boredom. You sit there, and every time a guard would walk down the hall and shake his keys or something like that, 10 guys would break out in a sweat because they might be coming in to get you, to beat you, to put you in irons or some other kind of torture. But John, after the initial thing, I never had a problem again with attitude. In all of us in there, we never looked forward very far because you had no idea when or if you were ever going home, other than your absolute conviction that someday you'll go home. But I could not say, well, let's look forward to next month or look forward to Christmas or whatever, because it was way too hard. So almost everybody that I know lived day to day. You ask God for strength to make it through the day, and you live one day at a time and took it as it came. And 1965 days for me, and we had slogans, by the way. I don't know if I told you this.
No.
Every time they gave us a banana, we thought with the peace talks in Paris were working and we were going to go home. But I was down in October 67. We had Golden Gate in 68, across the line in 69, 7-zip will be a pip, home for fun in 71. That went 4 years just sitting there in that same damn cell, trying to keep your attitude good. And I was able to do that. I kept my spirits up the whole time.
Tom, tell me how, because what you're talking about.
I'll go just a second after beyond it. But today, I'm 92 and a half now. And my attitude's the same as it was then. I'm living every day as if I wasn't going to die, or if I'm not going to die, but I'm willing to go tonight if God is ready for me. So I don't know how else to live, John.
That's why I like to be around you, Tom. Every moment that I'm in your presence, you elevate me. You elevate me with just the amazing attitude you have. Let's unpack some of that, because if we can share just 1/10 of that 1% with people, and they can get it in their heart. So real quickly, when you're in that intense situation, you're in the present moment, living from day to day. I was even thinking about, and I've not been to, AA, but I think about people talking about, just get through one day, get through. So other people have some challenges, but yours is much even, deeper. How did you actually do it? What did you use? You said you went inward. What did you use to control your mind?
The answer to that was, let's go. Remember I told you I was in with the 3 Navy guys.
Yep.
I have to sidetrack just a little bit. After 14 months together, one day I was carrying my toilet bucket out of the cell. It was my day to carry. All I did was open the door, let you out for 5 minutes. You go out to throw a little water in your face and hands and dump the toilet bucket and back in the cell. We were nothing to do, nothing to read or write, just sit there and bemoan your fate. But soon after that experience, I was broken out and put in solitary for right at 2 years. And why I said this is because that's so important in the scheme of things, how you handle solitary confinement. What we had to do, and I just figured it out. Everybody, I think, figured out the same thing. You've got to come up with a lifestyle. You've got to come up with a plan. I mean, and every morning, I wouldn't care the sequence, but every morning in that cell, which was about 8 feet long, about 3.5 steps, and do a turn and go 3.5 steps, I'd walk a couple of miles a day.
Wow.
I had to build myself back up. I couldn't walk for about 2 months. I had to build myself up. I would do PT. I'd do sit-ups and stuff that I could like that. And you remember, I'm a jazz musician. I was a saxophone player.
Yes. We're going to dive into that real quick. Go for it.
I managed to get a stick about 16, 18 inches long. And I played flute. And I used to say minimum 2 hours a day. I would move my fingers doing scales in my mind like I'm playing the flute. I do that. And I actually had built some houses, and I would build a building or two, nail by nail and beam by beam in my mind. And the nuttiest thing I did, I decided I wanted to be a cattle rancher when I came home. So I went through tapping into the walls to everybody. I generated a complete business plan in my head from info I was picking up from guys I was tapping on the walls to how to run a. And the big thing was something to do to occupy almost every minute. And the other thing is people don't realize how you can concentrate if you have time. As busy as you are, don't you wish you had an hour a day where you could shut the door, turn off the telephone, and just think for an hour? And it's one of the most wonderful things that you can come up with ideas. You can see your life takes a pattern, and that's exactly what was happening to me. So it was an idea of a plan to do it every day.
You know, it's amazing what you said, thinking time, right? And a lot of people nowadays do meditation in the morning. I know I try to. I don't do it every day, but I try to. And I have a morning routine also, which I just did this morning, you know, which I starts off with gratitude. Tell me, in your morning routine, was gratitude a piece of what got you through?
Not in the sense of the gratitude. There was a great deal of gratitude in the idea of God sparing me.
Right. Okay.
I didn't dwell a great deal on religion in the prison camp, except I had a story I've got to tell you. It's one of the probably the best story from the whole experiences. That I'd been up there. I don't remember how long, but anyway, probably 2 years. And they came and said, Kirk, it's your turn to read the news. Now, we had a little speaker in every cell, and every day they give us 2 hours of the Vietnamese news done by an American. A Vietnamese can't do it well enough. But anyway, so they came to me and said, your turn to do the news. I said, I'm not doing the news. And they, oh, yes, you are. They put me in another cell, took me out, put me in another cell. And if you can picture a little wooden stool, maybe 18 or 20 inches high, little round wooden stool, said, you sit here on this stool. I put myself by myself. You sit here on this stool until you do the news, no sleep. So I'm sitting on the damn stool, and I'm eaten alive by mosquitoes. 3 days go by, no sleep. 3 days, no sleep.
No sleep, and you were able to stay on the
falling asleep, and the guards are coming in and jab you in the back with a bayonet, or hit you with a gun. You learn to stay awake.
I see.
Well, on the fourth morning, it's as clear as if it happened this morning. I'm eaten alive by mosquito, and my kidneys and on my back are killing me. And I said, I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail. And I went into very, very deep prayer, almost like yoga. My prayer was, God, give me strength to endure this. Give me strength. And John, I don't care what you or anybody in the world thinks. God put his hand on my shoulder. I sat up straight. 7 more days. I mean, 2.5 days sitting on that stool, and I ultimately passed out and rolled out totally unconscious. They had to carry me back, but I never did tapes.
You never did. Holy cow. Hey, Tom, what did it feel like to have God's hand on your shoulder?
You know, most unbelievable thing. It was like a vision to me. And that's why I say I never try to push that on anybody else. I don't care what anybody else. It could have been my mind. It could have been my heart. It could have been my family. It could have been, but in my mind, take it for what it is. So that you see the idea of faith, gratitude, thank God for sparing us, because everybody went in the ground. They ain't coming back. We're back. Right. And so that stayed with me the whole time I was up there.
Unbelievable, Tom. Thanks for just diving into your heart and soul. Again, you brought goosebumps to me. I can only imagine, what that felt like to, first off, have to overcome your own fear, overcome your own pain, but to have the hand of God. I say a prayer every morning, may your hand be with me, and may I be a hand to others. And I'm asking for that. I'm asking for the Spirit to come.
For help.
Yes. Yeah. And we all need it. I mean, but
Absolutely.
every day we all need that help, right?
Absolutely.
Hey, let's pivot real quick because we could talk forever. You and I, fighter pilots, that experience though was unbelievable. I wanted to start there, but now what really impressed me is what you did afterwards. So Tom, talk about when you finally got out of the Hanoi Hilton. How does your life change? First, initially, not so much with the Air Force, but then you get into Italy and you start to have some incredible experiences as a financial planner. And then you're as an entrepreneur, you start pizza businesses. I want to hear about the sailboat business. I mean, let's go, Tom. This is where you shine. So what happens?
I think when we came home, it was so good to come home. And John, the prison camp was very boring and very scary at times. But once we totally adapted, most of us could have stayed up there another couple of years and been fine because they weren't beating on us very much. We did get some beatings, and if they do something that they thought was wrong, or you wouldn't do what they wanted, they would put you in leg irons for a few days and so forth. But all was bearable, let's put it that way. Well, the war ended 23rd of January, and we knew it was going to end because the B-52s came up, I believe the 12th of December, and started attacking Hanoi, and everyone else was jumping up and down for joy. We knew the war would end. Well, when the war ended, they told us, and they reopened 3 camps. One was already us and 3 others, because we came home in groups by shoot down duty. The oldest guy up there was a guy named Everett Alvarez, 10 years up there.
Jeez.
And they put the people in groups of 4, put in 4 groups to come home in 4 times, 4 different periods. And when we got out and came home, they took us right to Clark Field in the Philippines and kept us 2 days there. And with new uniforms, they had brought in dentists to be partially fix your teeth because you don't want to go home and be snaggletooth. I lost 3 teeth biting down on rocks in the soup. And most guys had some dental problems, and they fixed up eyeglasses, all our new uniforms, and telephone calls all over the world if you want any. Anyway, we came home and were kept in a hospital for a month. Wow. Family moved right in the hospital with you because they wanted to do a complete story on you. You had to get a new assignment or fix your ills. Brought the families right in, and then you went out back to work. Well, I want to go flying. Well, I wanted to get immediately right back into flying. And the problem was for me, I'd come out of the F-100 and from the F-100 into the 105. And when we got out, the 100s and the 105s are gone. You had A7s and you had the F4. And the problem was I was a fairly senior full colonel when I came home. Yeah. I was promoted in the prison camp. And I went to see my boss. The guy was my commander when I was shot down, was in a 2-stars in the Pentagon. So I walked over there and spent a couple of hours with him. And I said, Colonel John, General John, let's figure this thing out. I want to get back to flying. I want to be a general. I said, what should we do? He said, well, I'm going to call the general attacker and tell him to give you an F-15 squadron. I said, sir, stop. Don't. I know they're not going to give us any really good jobs until they learn whether we're all nuts, because nobody knew. So I said, let's think about it. You're going to have 1,000 full colonels with 1,000 full colonels with a lot of time in the F4. And I said, that ain't going to work. I'll end up being the base supply ops or something. I don't want that. I want to be an ops. So where can I go? He says, the one place you can go to no homestead is a training command. It's pilot training. So I said, okay, let's go to pilot training. So I went to pilot. I went in, took over as assistant DO of a wing, a pilot training wing. 3 months of that, then I was up to the DO. I had the DO for 2 years, and my squadron commander was picked for the evacuation of Saigon in '75. And we're having a morning stand-up briefing. The 4-star calls me and says, I'm frocking you at a 1-star general. You're going to Saigon this afternoon. So he left, and the general, he handed me the telephone. And the general says, Tommy, says, I was going to give you the wing, but it's going to be a while. Swede's gone. You got to be the wing commander. You got it, baby. Yes, sir. I don't know how to spell wing commander. Now I are one. So I took over. And it's funny, John, and the first morning you know, we're having a big stand-up briefing every morning. All the staff comes in. The first morning, and you're telling hut, and everybody stands up for the colonel. I'm the colonel, say, and everybody says, right. Then I start to staff. I don't even know how to spell one commander, and I am one. But anyway, it worked well, and I got on pretty quick and loved it.
Oh, your humility and your attitude is just so joyous. I love that. So you go back, you still got the passion to fly, you're wing commander. And then what happens? And tell me about the transition to a new life.
Yeah, well, what happened was that I had the wing, and when the general's list came out the year later, I didn't make it. And so I called the boss at home. I said, sir, I'm going to resign the wing. I said, after what I've been through and coming back, he says, I've been on the first team all my career, and I'm not going to be on the second team. And if you don't get promoted, that means you're on a second team. And the general, I'm talking to a 4-star. He used to be my ops officer in F-86s in Korea. So I've known him for 30 years. Anyway, he says, Tommy, you don't want to do this. I said, sir, yes, sir. I've thought about it. I've done all I can do. We won a worldwide supply todalion while I had the wing, and never had an accident, never had any problems. And I'd done everything I thought right. And anyway, he says, you don't want to do this. I said, yes, sir. I've thought it over. I own a home in Denver. Please assign me to Lowry. I'm going to spend a year, get my affairs in order, and then I'm going to get out. Tommy, you don't, anyway, 3 times he said it, and I'm dumb old farm boy. I didn't understand. He's telling me something. So I hung up the phone. 2 minutes later, the number 2 guy, the vice, called me. He says, Tommy, and he says, you SOB, you were the boss's #1 wing commander. I said, stop right there. I says, obviously I wasn't the #1 wing commander, or I'd have been promoted. He said, you seen the list? I said, no, why? He says, the board, you had only had to wing 3 months when the board met. This is not your year. So I'd done myself in. So I then asked a buddy for a job to get me to Europe, because I wasn't married to Ann, and I was married to an Italian, and we had a home in Trieste, Italy. And so I got an assignment to go to USUCOM, and John, they made me the vice commander of all special forces in Europe. In NATO. So it was a little headquarters, a planning headquarters. It had 17 guys, right? The Navy SEALs and Marine Force Recon and the Army Special. Anyway, a wonderful, had me jumping out of airplanes and rappelling at 48 years old. And anyway, we had a wonderful time. And my ex-wife's mother got cancer. And I was driving on Friday afternoon. I was driving 600 kilometers down to Trieste to see her, take care of her, and come back on Monday morning. I did that 17 weeks in a row, and I said, I don't need to do this. I'm going to retire. I put in for a medical retirement and got it. Well, that was the beginning of my life. I went to Trieste. I bought the 38-foot sailboat and started sailing, and I got mixed up with a lot of good musicians over there, and I started going down to Rome to play music on Roman Italian TV and the boats. And
wait. Let's just pause for a second, because I want everyone to know you're just not a musician. You're a great musician. I mean, your talent on the sax. And I'm just picturing, here's a 48-year-old fighter pilot who, been to Hanoi, now is in Italy playing jazz clubs on TV, living the life of a sailboat. I mean, now you're starting to really get my heart going. So what was that like?
Yeah, what happened? See, you got to understand the background. We're back in the Korean War. They put me in the BOQ with a major who was a financial guy, and he started me on an investment track at 21 years old. And to this day, I've never missed a month of investing a little money. So when I retired from the Air Force, I was living in Italy, and no work. I retired. I had enough money. I'm not going to work. So I had a sailboat, and I had a brand new Porsche. I mean, how do you get?
And you had a gorgeous home on the top of the mountain, right?
Yeah. And then we bought a little house up in the ski area. So my idea was to ski all winter, sail all summer, and chase around Europe with my Porsche. that was a good life. So I did that for a while,
Yeah.
but after a year after I got to living in Trieste, retired, my wife and I don't blame her and don't blame me, we couldn't get along and we split. Now I'm stuck in Italy and I wanted to be in Italy, but I got to go to work now, see, because you spent all the money. So anyway, I said, what the hell can I do? Well, I knew the investments and I knew the military. Aha, an investment advisor for the military.
Wow.
So I found a guy from West Point in Stuttgart that had set up a little business. There were 45 of us doing that, and that became my new career. And as soon as I got going with that, my buddy and I, we went down and bought 4 45-foot sailboats and started charter business. And we chartered for 12 years in Yugoslavia. And that we were skiing all the time and just having a wonderful life and playing music. I had a wonderful little band over there. We were playing all over Northern Italy. But anyway, I was having a good life, John.
Man, you are. You still have a good life. Did I tell you I lived on a sailboat when I was on the Blue Angels in Pensacola?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I lived on a sailboat. So I got a lot of same passions of you. But and I love that. The ability to go down to your sailboat, you feel the water. I mean, going from the jets to the water, it was so cool. But what's amazing to me is that now you reinvent yourself again. So you've got this very successful financial planning business, and you rolled that business up, right? You brought other military people in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what happens? Tell me about eating pizza.
Oh, well, what happened? See, I told you, my wife and I split. I met Ann because there was an air base 60 miles from where I was living, and I went over there and I was teaching. I didn't have teaching a business for the University of Maryland on the base, so I could get gasoline and counselor and PX and everything. And so I was doing that, and Ann was a teacher. And she got an opportunity to be promoted, and promotion took her to Madrid, Spain. So in
love Madrid. Yeah.
Anyway, she moved to Madrid, Spain, and we weren't married. And she moved in August. In October, I called her. I said, Ann, I'm so damn lonely. I'm coming over there Friday, get 3 days off. We're going to Gibraltar and get married. So we went to Gibraltar and got married.
You got married on Gibraltar.
Then, when we were in Spain, I had to start my business all over because it's from one place to another. I started all over. And then I was looking, you wouldn't remember because you weren't there, but Spain, about 1985, came out of the woodwork. Under Franco, Spain was living in past. And the new Spanish government there was the new king, and Spain went through an economic explosion. So I had a business partner in financial planning. We had a nice office in downtown Madrid. And we said, we got to get in on this. We were going to build some apartments and we couldn't borrow money. You couldn't, if you're not a Spaniard, you can't borrow money unless you got a lot of money. Anyway, so we decided we do a McDonald's, didn't have enough money. So we looked further and we finally settled on pizza. And he and I went down and we found the best pizza store I've ever seen to this day. And we walked in there and went there 4 days in a row for lunch because we were going to steal everything. We were going to take all this and open our own pizza business. And on the third day, this guy came up in perfect English. Okay, guys, what are you looking for? What do you want? Well, this was a Puerto Rican or a Cuban, the American. And he says, he owned the pizza thing. He was a marketing director for Johnson & Johnson Pharmaceuticals in Spain.
Really?
He had 3 pizza stores. And 2 days later, we had a joint venture to do pizza stores. And we did 8 stores in Madrid with him. And then he decided he wanted to own all the stores in Madrid. So it was about 2 years later, he gave us much more than they were worth for all of our stores. And then we moved down and started franchising all along the Spanish coast. And we ended up with 9 stores. And Ann and I both went right into it. I learned how to make the dough and flip the pizzas and run the stores and hire the people. We did that for a while. And finally, in 1992, Ann's organization was transferring from Spain back to Italy. And she didn't want to go there and she could retire. So we retired and we went. Ann had left college and went to Europe. She'd been in Europe 25 years. So she didn't know anything about where to live in the United States. And so I said, where do you want to retire? She says, I don't know. So we go to Vail because I had bought a house in Vail when I was in Denver. We go to Vail, we move in, and we start playing golf. It's in the summer, and Ann was a beautiful golfer. And in September, Ann says, I don't want to leave Vail. So we built a new house. We had bought a house, built a new house. I became a ski instructor. I had a jazz music group there. It was wonderful. And I got in the real estate business, and we built 28 houses, and still doing I tried to put my investment business to bed. I wasn't going to emerge, but I got in ski school, John, 1,500 instructors in ski school, and not one of them had a damn dime. I said, the Vail, Colorado was nothing but a military base and civilian clothes. There were the rich, the mid-sized, and everything. And all these guys, I put my investment hat back on and went to work for 3 more years to try to get those guys at least do an IRA, save a little money, because they finish ski season on Sunday, start banging nails Monday to pay the rent. So we did that and stayed 18 years in Vail. And then at 80 years old, we decided to get out of that cold weather, and we moved to Phoenix. And out here in Phoenix, I've become, I guess I'm primarily a speaker, but I'm very much involved in advocating for veterans out here. I go all around. I've made 165 talks out here advocating for veterans. And I'm a member of an organization called Veterans Heritage Privilege, where we go into schools and everywhere else and try to convince people to pay attention to, honor, and respect veterans. But let me tell you, I'll shut myself up. This year, John, I was inducted into the Arizona Military Hall of Fame. I'm thrilled to death about that. That just happened the 14th of May. So they paid me back for a little work here. And if God stays with me, I'm going to the gym 5 days a week, and I play a lot of golf still, 3 days a week normally, some with Ann on Sunday normally. And we are happy as if we had good sense. We love life, and she's 84, and she's as strong as an ox, and how she's a little bundle of fire, and she keeps me straight. And we're the luckiest people in the world, John. I talk way too much. You go ahead.
No, Tom, you just bring so much joy in life. I was thinking about it. I got a new prayer every morning, and I got it from an interview I just did a couple of days ago, which is you wake up and you go, may I be light, may I be love, may I be joy. And you already are all that. Every ounce of your body is resonating with light and love and joy. And your experiences, Ann is such a beautiful person. I know at the event, if everybody knows, at the garage, here you are, you guys are, close to your 90s, and you're partying later than anybody else at night. You're a fighter pilot forever. I mean, we're drinking scotch together, and blue, we're drinking blue scotch. And then the next morning, who's the first person in the gym? You and Ann. I mean,
that's exactly right.
Kicking my ass. I'm tired. I'm going, I can't hang with this guy. You are amazing.
No, you're so right. Someday, as Ann, I said, I don't understand it, that I'll go play 18 holes of golf, come home, take a nap, have a sandwich, take a nap, and go to the gym. And some days it's really hard, but John, I only weigh 161 now. And so I'm just, by the way, I had a mini stroke. I had a mini stroke 4 days before Thanksgiving, and I was in the gym. I just finished my bench presses, and I had to slip under the bar to get up. I go under the bar. I said, something's wrong. I don't feel right. And I got to the other side, and I was just going to lift my leg over the bench. Couldn't move my leg or my left arm. And they rushed me to the hospital. And 1 hour and a half later, everything was back to normal. They call it a mini stroke. And but it kept me only 1 day in the hospital. And they said, go for 2 months before you do anything. And so I had to lay off everything for 2 months, but I'm now back in the traces and doing it. But my philosophy, our philosophy, Ann and I together, is to live every day as if we weren't going to die and be ready when God calls. I mean, I don't know how else to do it, John. we live on this earth such a short period of time in the great scheme of things. You better live and enjoy every single day. And there's no time or no room up here for pessimism or for problems or faults, anything. You got it right. Glad to be here. I am glad just to be here, baby. Oh, you know that.
Tom, you are amazing. Hey, let's break down glad to be here real quick, because you just mentioned it, right? What does it mean? I like to say glad to be here has a couple of different meanings, right? Glad is that appreciation, that positivity that you're talking about. To be is a choice, a conscious choice. How do I choose to show up today? And you just talked about, I choose not to worry about the problems of my life. I choose to look at what's positive. And then the here is the present moment, which is living each day at the absolute best. I like to say live life in all its fullness, right? And you and Ann are that example.
That's a very, very interesting question and point. Is if I don't go to the gym for some reason, if it's something like John, I actually feel something's wrong. I mean, it's almost like I'm guilty. And that's self-generated because I know I ought to be in the gym. And I have a slogan around here: every day above ground is a good day. And so even when I don't feel well, thank God that doesn't happen very often, I still think about that. I want no enemies at this point in my life. If it's people, there's people that you and I don't dislike anybody, but there's people that we just don't care for in life. I don't want to be an enemy of that person. I don't care if they're smart ass to me or whatever they are. I'm just, yes, nice. I just stay away from them. But I think that if I have a purpose, I want to be as good a person as I can be all my life. Good to my family, good to my community, good to my friends, good to my church, everything, try to be. And we're so blessed to have, I'm so blessed to have a wonderful son who's doing so well. And everything's going well. John, I don't know how to do it any other way.
Yeah. Hey, what is the message? Thank you for that. What is the message that you give the kids in school, and what age groups do you talk to about the military? What would you say? You're going out there now, bringing awareness to veterans. What is the message you share?
The primary message to me is the word service. And the word service says it all. It's service to your country. And I use it's kind of corny, but it's really right. I tell people, I said, look, any person that leaves his family, leaves his home, signs his life away, what he's really doing, and goes in the military, goes where he's told, does whatever he's told, serves anywhere in the world to serve his country, is a guy that is, in my book, he's unique. He's made a decision to serve his country for whatever reason, doesn't matter. He goes in and does a job, and then he goes home. He leaves his family. He never knows where he's going, and he's liable to anything up to death. And I said, that type of person needs to be not necessarily honored, but he needs to be respected and appreciated. And I don't care if he cleaned toilets or he was a frontline infantryman, sailor, so whatever matter what. He's a guy that's just a little bit different. And these not, in most cases, people look down and don't appreciate the lower end of the guys. And I'm fired up about always since Iraq and the IEDs, the improvised explosive things, they're blowing off arms and legs. And I talk a lot about the fact, John, when you take a young man or a woman who's lost arm and legs, perhaps sight, you get them in a hospital, you got to fix them physically, but you got to fix the head, because the whole world they've lost it, they feel it. And if I've done any good, it's trying to talk to people to help them build back their strength. That you're still a man, you've got to dig deep, same as I. You've got to find a way to overcome this, and with help and your will, you will be able to come in. That's the whole pitch as far as I'm concerned.
Wow. Thank you, Tom, for sharing that in such a way that brings back not only that appreciation, but that respect for every single person who has taken that path.
Right.
And even if it's not in the military, the service to somehow to serve others.
The first responders and the firemen, policemen, but policemen especially today.
Yeah.
I mean, I just can't imagine how a young man would take a job today, knowing the way the country has let the police be attacked this way. I'm sorry, but they all deserve our support and our trust, to tell you the truth.
Exactly. Trust. Hey, how about the word forgiveness? You've obviously learned that at a much higher level than ever. How do you approach the word forgiveness?
I'm experiencing some of that in my life. I look back now many times, only with talking to Ann or by myself, I get very philosophic and think about starting all the way in space and working right down to where we are here, and the life, what I've done. And I've done things in my life that I'm not proud of. I think probably we all have at one time or the other. And forgiveness is something that I feel really strongly about, that because every one of us are failures, and we're always coming back. We strive to do something, but in spite of everything we do, we've always failed at something. I mean, and we have to recognize that whether it's another person or somebody has done something to you, you've lost some money, you've lost a kid. I lost a good friend this week here, a guy I used to go to the gym with, and put all these things together. And if you and I were ever get at odds, I won't hold it against you. I don't have one iota of hatred or malice toward the Vietnamese. And there's only two people in the world right now that I could put my hands around their neck and squeeze them to death. And one was the camp commander, because he liked to see us tortured, and the other was Jane Fonda. Jane Fonda has been such a disgrace to this country, to this, and everything she's had, that'll go with me to my grave. And we had a number of people that came over to the prison camp. I never got to see them because I wouldn't go to a meeting, but they came in supporting enemy cause against our country. I don't care how you hate the war. It was wrong to go against your country, I think. But back to forgiveness. Yeah. I approach forgiveness primarily because I'm going to forgive you unless I'm not able to.
Right. That's why you're such a blessing to this world. I hope we all, to think of when I say forgiveness, I think for me, it's easy for not easy. It's hard. Forgiveness is hard for everybody, but you are at a different level there. How about, this is to mentor me real quick. I struggle with the word surrender as a military person, but I'm learning that you need to relook at maybe the definition of what surrender means. How do you approach that word, surrender?
Surrender. Apart from the prison camp, I've never. Yes, when I approached surrender with great harshness, surrender that I wasn't going to make general. That was the second biggest surrender in my life. The first one, surrender to the Vietnamese, that I had to go to jail and stay there. The second one was going to jail a second time. I didn't make general. That was surrender. And it's tough to live with, because you're giving up part of your life is what it amounts to. And but you have to recognize, and John, is another thing, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but sometimes, for example, Dick Strong is awesome. Dick Strong is an incredible, awesome human being. He's one of the finest men I've ever known, as a man, character, structure, will, all these things. And when I see Dick Strong, I feel somewhat diminished. If you understand what I mean. Dick Strong's no better than I am. I don't mean that way.
Right.
Because God gave us all the good things, what we do with it. And, choices, life is choices, man. You make your choices.
Wow. Hey, Tom, I feel like I'm talking to my dad again, and that's in utmost respect, because I love my dad. He was, to me, the essence of wisdom, and he also had love. He was able to combine love and wisdom together. And actually, you look a lot like him, by the way, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing for me to say. If I was talking to my dad right now, and you wanted to impart some real wisdom on myself or anybody else in this world, what would that be right now? What advice would you give me?
The first thing I would say, I believe, would be truthful with yourself. It's so powerfully important, and try to maintain a level in life, a level in the sense of how do you stack up with your fellow man, and strive to be better. Always strive to be better. John, I'm finding as in the old age, I'm not as sharp as I used to be. My memory is not what it used to be. I'm a little more dangerous in an automobile than I used to be. Ann tells me that 3 times a day. And the other thing is, learn to listen more and talk less. But that's kind of hard to do for me.
I love it, because that's what people needed to hear, is your life experiences and your wisdom and your love and passion of life. I got just 2 last questions for us, and then you and I are going to spend some quality time together again in Vail. I can't wait to see you. Every year you bring such a joy to my heart. Here's the last question. If there's a second last question, if there's any live withs that you live your life by, any sayings, any mantras, something that you just live your life by, and we've already talked about some of them in this podcast. What are a couple that you live by?
The first thing is honesty, and starting with fiscal honesty in business. I've seen so many opportunities in my life to take advantage of people and people's money. And I just total, and it comes on integrity. It comes on doing the right thing. And I love the idea, and I try to do it, that do everything as if when nobody's there, do everything as if everybody saw what you're doing. So if you live your life as you would live if everybody knew everything you're doing, then I think you're pretty. And John, although I can't live up to them always, and not make this thing religious, but you can't beat the 10 Commandments.
Yeah,
you can't beat them. And if you just, my best cellmate was a guy named Billy Lawrence. He went on to 3 stars in the Navy guy. He went to Annapolis. He was president of his class all 4 years. He was a brigade commander at Annapolis, and it was a senior ranking guy in the entire United States Navy when he was shot down as a commander. He was aide to the CNO, Mr. America, baseball, football, and basketball player, and all these things, and finest man I ever met. And Billy used to say, I just don't understand how anybody can do bad things. And when we were in a prison camp, he says, Tommy, I love you, but I just can't understand how you could get a divorce. I said, what? He said, yes, you took a vow. And he's absolutely right. But that's one of the things that comes back under surrender. In the sense you have to admit when you've made mistakes and try not to make more. But I think it's what we just said about is you just have to come to grips with yourself. And I think in respect to everybody around you, especially your family.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you, Tom. It's been such a blessing to spend this time with you. I'm going to end with such a gratitude, my glad to be here statement. I am so grateful that you're in my life. I'm so grateful that you have shown me what a beacon of light really is in this world. And I'm so grateful that I can just call you a friend. So thank you so much,
Johnny. And you have done, well, you're a perfect example. I mean, I feel like I didn't do anything compared to what you did on the blues. I mean, I'd give any world I've had that opportunity. That's fantastic. And you've gone on, left the Navy, and you've been such a success. And you're a success because you are personalizing everything that I want to be. And I mean that. The personality, love, caring for people, wanting to do a good job, new ideas, trying to think things through, trying to make something grow. And so let's keep in touch.
Let's do that. So much, Tom. Hey, what's your last statement? What are you glad to be here today? What are you grateful for right now?
Grateful right now. I'm getting ready to go to the gym. You got it, pal. Okay, thank you. We'll go off. John, it's a real pleasure being with you.
Blessings, buddy.